Hey everyone, it is Sean and Dave here from Saturday Morning Cartoons. We want to thank the following people for going to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Cartoons and supporting our show. So a huge thank you to Derek Haynes,
Dr. Jason Woods,
Jamal Newman,
Melanie Harker,
Allison Keene,
the one and only Sean Paul Ellis,
and the amazing Dave Trumbore.
Oh, thank you so much. Now, it might sound kind of weird that we are thanking some familiar people and ourselves in this list, but we want to let you listeners out there know that we are not just asking you to support us through Patreon. We are actually putting our hard-earned dollars into the show as well. So we just want to say thank you to those who have supported, and for anyone who can't but would like to help out the show in some way, feel free to share our Patreon page within your social media circles. It would really help a lot.
So thank you guys. We appreciate you going to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Cartoons to sponsor and support our podcast. And now, on with the show.
Hello and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons, the weekly podcast that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest animated series. Coming to you from the Grand Line, I'll be your co-captain, Dave Trumbore. Joining me as always, straight from swabbing the poop deck, it's Sean Paul Ellis. How's it going, Sean?
David. I'm doing well, buddy. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. You knew there were pirate puns coming.
Yeah,
You had to.
I knew. There had to have been. It's unavoidable with this show.
Yeah.
And why would you want to avoid them?
Exactly. That's why I love talking first, because there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, I'm pretty much trapped from the moment you open your mouth.
Yeah. He tries talking me out of it at the beginning, but it doesn't work. It never works. I feel like I have to be on my best behavior, though, because it's not just you and me tonight. We have somebody else in the crew here with us.
We do. We have Alex Kazanas joining us, who is a DC improviser and artist and host of the One Piece podcast.
Hey, I would say co-host, but
Co-host.
yeah, there's like 5 of us. That's
okay.
Yeah.
It's like we're crew over there. Yeah.
Yeah, we are the One Piece podcast crew. That's what the folks at FUNimation call it.
Awesome.
How long have you guys been doing this now?
The podcast has been going since 2009.
Wow.
Yeah. And the reason that the podcast started was to gain like more to help One Piece gain more popularity in the US, because I think Funimation had just gotten the rights to the dub,
right.
And they wanted to cover it. And I didn't end up joining the podcast until maybe about a year and a half later after they started. I was the head admin on a One Piece fan site called arlongpark.net. And it's still going. I've since been I've since left because forums are a wretched hive of scum and villainy. But they had me on, and I liked what they did, and I just kept doing it, and here I am, still doing it with them.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's crazy though. So we're gonna take your like years of focused expertise on the One Piece series, and we're gonna distill it down to this one specific episode that us idiots talked about and watched tonight. So obviously we're talking One Piece tonight. We did focus on one particular episode. We're not gonna do an overarching thing. Was this, Alex, was this your suggestion?
So I went to Twitter and I asked my followers, if you were to show One Piece to someone who has never watched it before, what episode would it be? And I gave a couple episodes that I like just Googled and see what people thought as fan favorites. And this one was the runner-up, but I decided to choose it because I think it best exemplifies what One Piece is really all about at the core of it. And it has like a little bit of an origin story to it, and it hits all the right beats, I think, for what One Piece really is.
Yeah, it's interesting because it is pretty early on in the going, so we don't have like the full cast of characters, but we do kind of have like the core folks in this thing. So it is kind of a nice introduction for people who have not watched it.
Yeah, I thought it would be actually really hard to jump in later on in the series because since this is a serial, it's a long-running serial, right. There's a lot of context that you kind of need to know in order to fully enjoy what's going on, I think.
Right.
So earlier is better when it comes to that kind of thing, I think.
So I'll say I think you're 100% right, because this is I know that you've obviously been watching One Piece for a while. Mm-hmm. Dave, I know that you've watched One Piece. This tonight was my first full episode of One Piece that I've ever watched. And I'm definitely interested in watching more.
Cool. That's good to hear. You never know on this show. Sometimes it really poisons you, and you never want to come back to the well. But It's good to hear that you want to check out some more. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you guys want to dive into this? I'm going to give our listeners out there who, like Sean, may have not been familiar with this show a little bit of a background and some history on One Piece. So One Piece is a Japanese manga series written and illustrated by Eiichiro Oda, and that's still ongoing, as Alex mentioned. It has been serialized in Shueisha's weekly Shonen Jump magazine since 1997, with the chapters collected into 84 tankobon volumes to date. As of November 2016, the manga has sold 406 million copies worldwide, making it the best-selling manga series in history. The manga has been adapted into an anime series produced by Toei Animation, which began broadcasting in Japan in 1999, and has aired 778 episodes to date. Additionally, Toei has developed 13 animated feature films, 1 OVA, and 11 television specials. And again, just to keep this in mind, this is still ongoing. Alex mentioned earlier in the pre-show that there may be about 70% done with the story, and that's just in the manga, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They got a lot to go.
Yeah, the TV animation is generally about a year behind the manga, which, what can you do? I'd rather be further behind, honestly, because that way the episodes would have more, more content.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Hey, Sean, you want to take a stab at what the show's actually about? Now, it's difficult to distill, 800 or so episodes down into a couple sentences, but
so we're gonna go 1,000, 1,000 Mile High.
Yeah.
So One Piece follows the adventures of Monkey D. Luffy, a young man whose body gained the properties of rubber after unintentionally eating a devil fruit. With his crew of pirates named the Straw Hat Pirates, Luffy explores the Grand Line in search of the world's ultimate treasure, known as One Piece, in order to become the next king of the pirates.
Now, how would you guys expect me to know that plot without ever having watched the show before? It's almost like if there was some way to deliver all that exposition. I don't know. How would you go about it?
You mean in a theme song?
Oh, that'd be a great idea.
Yeah, I know. You would definitely want to deliver and kind of encapsulate this entire story from the beginning and present it to somebody in a theme song.
Now, we normally talk about theme songs to launch kind of into our discussions here. This, I think, in 148 episodes of our podcast, give or take, I think this is the first time we have 3 variations of the same theme song.
Right.
We normally have, when we talk about a Japanese series or a foreign series, we normally have the native language, the native music, and then whatever bastardization we do here in America to make it English language and then pump up Dragon Ball Z is a famous one. We haven't covered that on the show yet, but to go from that theme to the American theme is just a radical departure. Now, we actually have 2 different Americanized English language versions, but I think we're going to start with the Japanese theme. So since Alex is our guest, I'd like to ask him, what is it about the Japanese theme song that really speaks to you?
So, generally when it comes to anime theme songs, they hire a J-pop group or some other popular band to do a song for them, just to release as a single. One Piece sort of carries on the tradition of old school anime where the theme song is developed specifically for the show. Yeah, so this theme song called We Are, it's composed by Koei Tanaka, the great Koei Tanaka, who also does the score for the series. He also did the score for, I think, Sailor Moon and G Gundam. So he composed it, and the song was written and performed by the immortal Hiroshi Kitadani. And I say that because in 20 years he hasn't aged. It's crazy. It reminds me a whole lot of Makafushigi Adventure, which is the original Dragon Ball theme, or Tobe Gandamu, which is the original Gundam theme, where it doesn't feel like J-pop or J-rocky or of its time. I think it's a timeless theme song because it sort of encapsulates what this series is, just the tempo of the song and I guess the lyrics. So yeah, I love We Are. It's one of my favorite songs just in general.
Now one of the things that we always talk about here is that, and that you kind of hit on, was that we have a lot of theme songs that are created specifically for just the theme song. We have a lot of times it's just sort of like a clips from the first handful of episodes that were produced that are kind of all spliced together to show some action sequence. And then every once in a while, we have kind of a hybrid.
Yeah.
And I think that one thing that I loved about this was that you could, as I was watching this, I had to look it up and check and see and been like, is this any animation? This doesn't look like it would be animation that would be reused in anything. I love the fact that they were confident in what they were doing and said, like, this is getting its own dedicated theme song. We want people to kind of have some of that exposition up front, because far too often we've had that problem, like where we'll get into an anime and it's just a bunch of flashing lights with the J-pop soundtrack behind it, and you enter into this show thinking like, well, I kind of know who the bad guys are because we saw them very like smash cut at the end, and they were in dark, brooding clothing with like red hair, and I know who the good guys are because they've got like really, really light, positive kind of upbeat colors. And so I have a sense of like good and evil, but I don't really have much of anything else as I'm getting ready to watch this, other than over the last couple weeks when we talked Fooly Cooly, we were thankful that we had the Pillows who did the soundtrack. I know, right? And so when we did Cowboy Bebop, we had the Seatbelts, and so we had a lot of those really classic bands that were kind of filling in and providing some of that. But then every once in a while, we get kind of thrown a curveball where I know in last month in March when we were doing Mecha March Madness, we had some weird theme songs that were, I forget which song it was, but it was like the fingers, like the trembling fingers, like walking down your thigh or something. Like it was like
I feel like it was probably Gundam because it sounds like
it was probably Gundam.
So yeah,
it was probably Zeta Gundam, and so like it was one of those things that like when we're watching it, we're just like this doesn't give you any idea what you're about to watch. So I mean, this was great for the simple fact that we have complained about, but also at the same time praised, like the fact that it gave just enough exposition to kind of whet your appetite to be like, I know what the ultimate goal is here. But then it's dedicated and really kind of draws you in because like there's so much action that's in this theme song. There was a guy like breakdancing on the deck of a boat, and I was just like, that's kind of badass.
Yeah, Luffy punches a sea monster in the face.
Yeah. Oh my God. That is my favorite part. These sea monsters that come up in this intro are bananas crazy. And like, that's actually and this is weird because this drew me in immediately. I was like, these fucking sea monsters, if they're not in like every episode, and then we watch this episode and I'm sitting there just like, oh, I feel so vindicated right now. Like it was really
it's a nice
like,
it is.
There's one that looks like it's a weird ostrich poodle. And I was like, yeah, all right. Like it just that kind of imagination of just like, yeah, you have sea monsters, but like, what if these sea monsters were absolutely bananas crazy? Like I love seeing like where they kind of created, obviously, from like maps and from people, sailing seas and stuff like that, all the way back to like the 13th and 14th century, like, coming back with those like crazy maps that showed monsters of the ocean. This just had one of those things where you're just like, oh, these guys took it up to a new level where these are bananas crazy things. I loved it.
Yeah, and then launching off that point, what I think this theme song and the intro itself does really well is it sells you on the adventure. Like this is a very adventurous at its heart story and tone, and the characters are all very adventurous in varying ways for different reasons, but you get a sense of that in the theme song itself. Yes, the first kind of third or half of it is laying out exposition about there was this pirate king. He left his vast hordes of treasure in one place, and people are rushing to find that and becoming the king of the pirates. And you're like, okay, cool, got that exposition. Now let's go on an adventure. And they literally invite you. They're like, hey, come on, come along. And you're like, okay, cool. Yeah. I guess I'll go on this crazy pirate ride with a bunch of weirdos and a stretchy armed dude. I don't know what's happening, but I'm in for the adventure. It's a really fun song. It's very catchy. It gets to the point where it's almost like it's just something that you could just play pretty much at any time and like already be put in a better mood. Now, this is only the first of the 3 versions that we're talking about. Yeah. So I want to jump to the Funimation version next. I believe it's the Funimation version that did a rare thing where they kept the same visuals, but they also kept the same tune. They just changed the lyrics up, and they just made English lyrics. And I don't think that happens too often.
No, one thing that they did previously was with Yu Yu Hakusho, I think.
Okay.
Yu Yu Hakusho did a similar thing where they translated that theme song, Smile Bomb. And I think the only one I can think off the top of my head is Rurouni Kenshin.
Oh man, it's been a long time.
Yeah. But yeah, generally Funimation will do that occasionally. They did that for the first maybe four openings for One Piece, and then they just kind of kept it Japanese after.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know they did that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I like this one too because it was the same tune, which was already great. I mean, it was a fantastic song, and then the English language lyrics like kept the same spirit of it, and they didn't go goofy with it, which we'll talk about in a second. They kept the same spirit. They had that same feeling of adventure, that same sort of invitation to join these people on the journey. The only thing that ticked me off in this was when they're talking to Gold Roger. He says, "I left my treasure all in one place," and the title is One Piece, and it just drives me crazy that he says one place, but it's One Piece, and I don't know why that has always bothered me, just because of my weird like ADD stuff. But honestly, that's the only problem I have with the Funimation version. However, there is yet another version, which is like legion in the number of versions that it itself has. There is the 4Kids theme song.
Right.
So why don't you let us know, Alex, what you think about this one?
Okay, so back when One Piece was optioned for a dub for the very first time, there were a couple companies that were raring to get their mitts on it, including the Ocean Group, the Canadian group from Vancouver, Blue Water, Funimation, and the one that ended up getting it was 4Kids, known for Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Tokyo Mew Mew, I think was one of their properties. And they're notorious for butchering and censoring the crap out of anime to make it friendly to a much younger audience, so they can watch it on Saturday mornings and market the crap out of it. So, imagine my surprise when I was in the year is 2004. I am in college. I've been into One Piece for about 2 years at this point. I'm like raring to go. I'm like, you know what, maybe they'll do a pretty good job, because I was reading some really good things about like how they're trying to keep it to the series, yada yada yada. Saturday morning rolls around. I turn on the TV and you get your Gold Roger.
Same intro.
Same intro. I'm like, okay, all right. I left it all in one piece. Okay, that's kind of punny, but whatever. And then it launches into the One Piece pirate rap.
Oh no.
Which boy, let me tell
Listen,
you,
if you out there have already heard this and you know exactly what we're talking about, and if you haven't, boy, are you in for a treat.
Yeah, look it up on YouTube this instant if you haven't, because it is something to behold. Naturally, I mean, I love it now because it's so dumb, and One Piece has since gotten a much better dub. But boy, first time I saw that, I was like, what is going on? What is happening? And my friend who was watching it with me goes, "Is that show you like? This is One Piece?"
Oh no.
It's so bad that it is embarrassing to then admit that like you watched the show.
A little bit.
If somebody else in the room hears that, and this I speak from personal experience, if someone else in the room hears that and then they look at you like, this is what you're watching, like it makes you feel bad. Like you have to go like into a closet and watch it somewhere in obscurity. It's that bad of a rap.
Yeah, my favorite thing about it is that they put in so much information. Like they reiterate, it's the name of the treasure in the Grand Line like 3 times. That's what the One Piece is. They're going to the Grand Line. Yo ho ho, he took a bite of gum gum.
Oh god.
They literally have to list out like everybody's name, what their attributes are, and what they're currently doing in the theme song. Like if somebody's like doctoring someone up, if somebody's making a meal. It's a complete mess, and I love it. Now, Sean, I know this was like we watched your like live reaction to this rap, so tell us your thoughts here on the 4K Kids rap. Or 4Kids rap.
I mean, it's one of those things that 100% should not work and should not be enjoyable to watch. But when you see it, you're just like, this is so dumb that it's enjoyable. I mean, it's you.
It's in your head too.
Yeah, it's like stuck in my head, and I mean, it's definitely an earworm, and it's just one of those things that like it's going to be one of those things that like in the middle of the night, like I'm just going to like just randomly be like, yo ho ho, he took a bite of gum gum.
Every time. And then it cracks me up, and it to the point of like crying. I can't get through this thing without tearing up.
This is what I'm going to do. The next time I'm having a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day, I'm going to say that out loud, like in front of a mirror, and see if I don't just start smiling.
You definitely will.
It's like one of those things I'm just like, I'm pretty sure that this could become like a new positive thing in my, like, it's so bad that I think it could become a new positive mantra in my life in order to like talk me down from the ledge of like going and throwing a laptop across the room. I'll be like, yo ho ho, he took a bite of gum. Okay, I'm in a better mood now, guys. I don't think you can
get through it without smiling. I really don't.
So when it had first hit the internet, somebody I knew in the One Piece community, he was also into like street dancing, like break dancing and stuff like that. He took the song and made like a video where it's just footage of people like, you know, break dancing, and it's just the backdrop is that song. And I wish I still had it. Like I had saved to my old hard drive.
We need to post that somewhere. Yeah.
Oh god.
It was amazing. I might have it on a backup disc somewhere, but oh my god, it was perfect.
Anything else on the theme songs there? Any one of the 3 versions that we have before we jump to the next section?
I think we're good, right?
Man, just go definitely listen to them. Listen to all 3 versions, because go from the Japanese to the Funimation and then check out the rap, because boy.
I can't wait to post these on Facebook for people to listen to.
They're a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun.
Be like, guys, which is your favorite One Piece rap?
That's true.
There's 3 different versions.
Multiple raps.
God.
Okay, so I think that's about wraps it up for the theme song section. Like we said, you guys should go and definitely check those out, and it'll be a delight. Speaking of delight, we're going to talk about the animation style of One Piece, which is, I'd like to call it iconic, because I honestly can't think of too many other cartoon shows or animes that like have this kind of style, and it's honestly one that I can't even really describe all that well. So, Alex, resident expert, what's your take on the animation style of One Piece, and how has that sort of evolved from the early days, you know, sort of where we watched this episode up until more modern era?
Yeah. Wow. So the One Piece art style is something that initially turns a lot of people off because they're like, oh, this looks nothing like anime. It actually is very European looking. If you ever like look at European comics like Belgian stuff like Tintin or Asterix. Asterix is a big comparison to make, I'd say. Because the eyes aren't like super huge. Instead, the mouths are super huge.
Right.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people described the animation style as rubbery, which I think is funny.
That's pretty ironic,
given the set of circumstances for our hero.
Yeah,
pretty spot on.
Yeah, and the animation style over the last couple of years has changed a lot. The show's been going on for almost 20 years now, as it is, and because it's a long-running Toei series, they try to do budget cuts here and there. So, in addition to trying to keep the show as close to Eiichiro Oda's artwork as possible, because over the last 20 years, his artwork has also changed slightly.
Because of budget cuts.
Because,
well, cut the man's hand off. Crazy.
Yeah. But at this point, you'll see a lot more in the current episodes. You'll see a lot more just like kind of stills versus actual animation happening, or a lot more just talky scenes. But I would say the first like maybe 200 episodes. More than that, actually, of the anime are really solid in terms of just how everybody moves and all that.
Now, when you say that it's a lot of just kind of like single frames, is it the Dragon Ball Z style where it's sort of like they pan up from like bottom to top as like somebody's talking, so they can prevent from actually animating like their mouth moving, or they're in like a heroic pose and it just kind of is like a scroll?
Sometimes. In more recent memory, it's gotten to the point where action is happening and they'll use like a still of like this character breaking a wall and just using clever like zoom in and shaky cam shit to make it look like something actually happened.
Really? That's almost more like a motion comic. That's really surprising that they're kind of doing that. But
oh man, and that ties in well with what we had last week with Fully Cooley. And sort of the weird anime manga style that they jump into randomly, like in the 1st and the 6th episode.
Yeah, I mean, that thing was all over the map.
Yeah.
But at least for this episode tonight, like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the thing about One Piece, though, is that after a while, like after maybe about the first 100 episodes, they started changing animation directors.
Okay.
And now they have different animation directors working on each subsequent episode. So next episode could look amazing, but this week's episode looks like crap. Like, that's just how it's been for the last couple of years, admittedly.
I mean, is this something where like they've received? Because I mean, that sounds like if it's been admittedly and it's been for a couple years, do they get feedback from the fans about like, hey, this person really kind of isn't pulling their weight in terms of their art direction?
I'm not really sure about that.
I mean, but at the same time, like it's breaking records.
Yeah.
You know, every time a new episode comes out, or every time a new manga comes out. So at that point, they're probably just like, we don't really care.
Yeah, One Piece is heavily marketed in Japan, obviously, being the top selling manga of all time. If you've ever I went to Japan 2010.
Okay.
Everywhere, naturally, and I was like a kid in a candy store, obviously. But that being said, because there's so much demand for this, there's going to be demand for it anyway.
Right.
That's just how it works. So they can crap out an episode and people will watch it anyway. The manga, though, I think has remained incredibly consistent.
Okay.
And if the story's there, then it's worth watching the show, I think also.
No, I agree.
Yeah, so Sean, how about you? Like, how was your introduction? Since this is the first time you've watched this show, what was your sort of first reaction to this particular animation style?
So it was interesting because you said how it sort of is decidedly not very anime-ish. I kind of got for me, it looked sort of like somebody in America had attempted to make an anime with limited knowledge and idea of watching or appreciating anime in any way, shape, or form, and was like, guess what? We'll market it and we'll just slap a thing on it and we'll throw it out there. And so but to your point, it did really kind of freak me out for a little bit because there are the lips, like the lips and the mouths in this show are very unique and very distinct. And it threw me off for a little bit kind of watching it because, we have some characters that just very thin lips and that's it. But then we have other characters that kind of have that like outline or that ring, like that weird Homer Simpson mouth, at parts. And I was just kind of like, what is that? Just like bad chapped lips? Like what is going on there? And so it just, that kind of threw me off a little bit just because I mean, I've seen things that have been like that before. And so, I mean, it didn't seem like the style felt kind of like a weird Americanized anime in some sense. Or even kind of what you mentioned, kind of like we were talking a little bit about Lupin, Lupin the Third. It kind of felt like it was sort of like an evolution of that art style a little bit, because they had pretty consistent eyes that were in that, like their bodies were sort of the same shape or form that they had, but they didn't have the weird exaggerated mouths, and so that kind of felt like what the differentiator was in this sense. And then I just love the fact that all these characters are just so brightly colored.
Yeah, the whole world.
Too.
just
just the entire design about this. Everything is so completely vibrant and exciting. From Zoro's, from the green,
right.
like the splashes of green that he has, to sort of like weirdly almost like the Americanized kind of red and blue colors that like Luffy has. For everything. And then one of the characters, and we can get into this in our next section, for Shanks, like I'm biased. I just love the fact that this dude's a redhead, So I mean, I feel like yeah. So I mean, I love the fact that there was a lot of style and variety, and it didn't feel like anybody was cookie cutter or copy pasted from just kind of like a basic mold. It felt like everybody that was in there, everybody in Shanks's crew, everybody else, just very distinct.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when we watched all the mecha series, there were some where it was like you couldn't tell one from the next. Like you just had like a random kid in a private school, and you'd be like, I have no idea what anime this kid's from. 'Cause he's like from
Gundam.
Like everything. Yeah, or possibly Gundam. But the fact that you could pick a character from here who you may have never met before, and you just be like, that's a One Piece character. Now that, for me, that was kind of a detrimental thing, because as I watched more of these in the past, I just never really fell in love with the art style. Some of it was just very jarring and shocking at first. I was just kind of like, that's interesting. I don't know if I want to keep watching this though. But Alex, you had something to say?
Yeah, that's one thing that I love about One Piece are all the character designs. Every single character design is very unique. And even now with 760 plus chapters, there will be a character design that knocks me off my ass. And you can always, like you said, you can always tell if it's a One Piece character or not.
Yeah.
And I think that's it being a detriment. Yeah, I guess that's your journey, man. But
It was,
I
the
think
same
it's
thing with like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure for me. Like once we started getting into some of that stuff, I was just kind of like, this is not for me. Like just visually, I don't know if I can handle this kind of thing. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Yeah. It just goes to show you what an imagination this guy has.
Right.
Like, it just vomits out imagination. It's a bad example of something, but
guys, it's just like rainbow vomit. It's just just very rainbow beautiful. It's like if
That's-
you
I mean,
were
that's
just
how I make
excited
my-
about vomit.
That's how I make my manga at home, though. That's how I DIY my manga
Ugh.
inking and coloring. It's just I eat a lot of Skittles, like a lot of Skittles,
Oh God.
and just vomit over everything. And it's not selling yet, but I think it'll catch on. It'll be fine. But I don't know. It's just there's something about the style. Like I love watching Luffy when he's kind of in action. I love watching the way that they, quite literally have to stretch a scene or stretch a camera lens to follow his his fist or his foot or whatever happens to be stretching at that point. And I love how sort of how he is animated. And every character has kind of their own signature style, and the animation style and the camera lens that they use for that kind of matches it. Whether it's a villain who shows up for only like 2 seconds and like destroys a bar scene, or whether it's, your main protagonist. So I love the fact that everybody kind of has like a signature look to them. It's just for me personally that style was never quite the attraction. Does that make sense? Like I appreciate how unique and interesting it was. It just wasn't particularly attractive to me. But anything else from the animation style of this? I mean, you'll spot One Piece from a mile away. So
Nah, I mean, we've been talking about these characters. I want to get into them.
okay, who do you want to start with there, bub? Because we meet a fair amount of people in this one. We don't spend a lot of time with everybody, but we meet a fair amount of people.
Right. I mean, Alex, you picked this episode because it kind of really does a great job giving some of Luffy's backstory. Even the moments that we have, like, I'm kind of curious about the character development for Luffy. Like, he seems impulsive.
Mm-hmm.
He seems, just kind of very sporadic at times. And the thing that, as I was watching this, and friend of the show, Melanie Harker, had mentioned and explained to me, sort of how deep his character, his arc is, and just sort of some of the things. Because I mean, he's a pirate, who when he was a child was a great swimmer, and then he eats this devil's fruit. He now can't swim anymore. And so the idea of him being a pirate and being on the high seas all the time, but he can't swim, he'll sink, like, creates an enormous dilemma for him, presumably a lot of the time that he's out there. And so I'm just kind of curious, like, just in terms of this, like, how much evolution do we get in his character? I mean, obviously 700 and something episodes and chapters that we have that are into this, but I mean, I'm just kind of curious to learn, like, how much Luffy actually learns about, like, life in the world around him.
So one thing that doesn't change with Luffy is his impulsiveness.
Okay.
He's that's just who he is as a character. Like,
okay.
He's very, I'm going to jump into this regardless of the danger. But that being said, he does develop in a lot of other ways, and the crew that he collects is key to that. That's really the most succinct way I can probably put that.
Okay.
You find out more about him as the series goes along, in his actions and what he does for his crew and for the people that he meets along the way.
Okay. I think
the nice
good.
The nice thing about this particular episode is that this is sort of like the genesis of Luffy. This is his starting point, and it's also the 4th episode. So when you first, if you go back and watch the first couple episodes, you'll just see Luffy as this, like, oh, he seems kind of like an asshole. Like, what's he doing? This very strange person. But it's not until this where you actually kind of get to see, I see, this is
Gotcha.
the kind of person that he used to be.
Yeah, that's what I loved about this particular episode. I'm glad that you picked it because we get to see a lot about Luffy from his past and from his childhood and from the interactions he had with other people growing up. And we'll get to that a little bit in the plot. So honestly, we don't spend a lot of time with, like, adult Luffy here, but we do see that he does have that impetuous streak. He does have that kind of like just spontaneous, like, I'm just going to launch myself after a bird and see what happens. That is like evident. We get brief flashes of some other characters. So Zoro, right? We get get a couple lines from Zoro where they're still trying to like feel each other out at this point. It's essentially a two-man crew. You got Luffy and you got Zoro. And we still don't know a lot about Zoro. Luffy tends to think that he's like bounty hunter. Zoro's like, well, that's not technically what I'd call myself, but that's fine. And he kind of slips a little bit of backstory, but only like one line. And that's it.
Right.
The cool thing about him is we get to see that he's like physically capable of handling himself and like handling a situation, as we see later on in the plot. I think, honestly, for my money, the best introduction here was Nami. And we don't even get her name. So, Sean, what do you think about our introduction to Nami? Ever so briefly.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that it was something where like she was a very cunning and kind of creative character. It was challenging because we have this whole framing story, that's set in the present time of Nami on her own ship, kind of swindling these three other pirates and stealing their ship in order to kind of get away from a perilous situation that she's been put in. Plus, we have Luffy and Zoro who are together. And so that's kind of the main framing story that we have, and we get very little of it.
The cool thing about like the Nami section was like it seemed like it was just going to be a one-off thing that didn't connect to anything, and it ends up at the end of the episode comes back and connects to like not only to Luffy's story, but like it connects to where they're going from here too, which was
right. I mean, when it buttons at the end, it was really satisfying to kind of see that all kind of come together.
Yeah, and then knowing where it goes from there is also pretty cool too. So it's like it feels like there's just not a wasted frame in the show, which is nice because that's pretty rare. With a lot of the garbage that we watch, there's a lot of wasted frames from beginning to end. And this seems like everything, it seems like it could just be like a fun gag or a funny joke, but it connects to everything else along the way.
It was interesting. She definitely seemed like a character. Nami seemed like a character that like you wouldn't really want to initially trust right out the gate.
Yep.
And so kind of seeing this, her reaction and how she kind of treats these other people, I'm kind of just like, I wonder how the crew kind of incorporates her into the mix. I know that she's obviously a major character in this show. And so for me, I was just like, well, it seems like this person is cunning, mischievous, and a little bit deceitful. How does that kind of round out and kind of help and assist somebody who is very spontaneous and kind of petulant at times, and how does it also correspond with somebody who's like completely mysterious and doesn't really communicate what's on his business card?
Yeah, but what a great
or at least what that job
to her.
title is.
What a great introduction to her character, because it seems like these other pirates kind of treat her as like a damsel in distress. So you just think that she's going to be like somebody who needs help, and she completely flips the script on them. So before we jump into the plot, which it seems like we're kind of dancing around here, I wanted to ask Alex, what was it like for this episode going back? 777 episodes. What was it like going back to sort of like the beginning where you don't know anything about any of these characters? What was it like to see them in that element?
Ah, man, it's so nostalgic. Whenever I go back, I usually reread it. And this particular episode, the flashback, that's the first chapter of One Piece.
Oh, cool.
It just starts off with that, and then at the end of that chapter, you see Luffy sock the sea monster in the face, like from the opening.
Okay.
To show like, oh, this is Luffy 10 years later. Here he is. I forgot about the framing device completely when I went back to this episode, and it really is satisfying.
Yeah,
you do get a nice bookend with Nami's little arc here, and you get a little introduction to who Zoro is kind of, and what kind of a person Luffy is, and how completely screwed they are that neither of them have navigational skills whatsoever.
Yeah, they're like quite literally just adrift in the open ocean, and neither of them knows what to do or where they're going. Yeah.
But then you have this little drama right before the flashback. Oh, the hat. And
feel free to jump right into that, because we've already kind of talked about the introduction of Nami with these other pirates that she kind of dupes into taking their boat. So what dovetail right into what's going on with Luffy and Zoro on their boat?
Yeah, so they're setting sail from Shellstown. Luffy had just recruited Zoro to be on his crew, and they're kind of aimlessly wandering. Luffy has no idea where to go, and Zoro's like, isn't it weird that that for a person who's going to be king of the pirates, you have absolutely no navigational chutzpah, and and Luffy's like, well, what about you? You just you're a pirate hunter, right? And he's like, well, no, but I got lost. And basically, Zoro roundabout way tells him, I'm in search of a man because I'm a mysterious character, but then I got lost at sea. So they have a little bit of an altercation, and Luffy's hat flies off his head, and there's this really neat moment where they're kind of chasing the hat in slow motion, and as soon as Zoro grabs it, it does this really awesome transition to Shanks putting on the hat.
Right.
Shanks is Luffy's mentor, so to speak. You see him very briefly in the opening, and you're like, oh, is that his dad? Because they have the same eyes. Like it's
right.
That's
same build.
That was my initial.
And the second thing, I thought that it was maybe like a take your son to work day scenario, because I was like, it's just a dad sitting at a bar drinking.
Yeah.
And he's got his kid next to him, and I was like, and they do kind of have a similar appearance, and so I was like, well, this sort of makes sense, And it turns out that like his mother is working at that bar.
Oh, that's not his mom.
That's not his mom?
No.
I was trying to figure out how she fit in. I didn't research. What's her name? Miss Misinko?
Makino. Yeah, she just owns the bar. She's not Luffy's mom.
Who?
Take that.
Then
Sean.
he's just a random kid in a bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a
he
bar
just hangs
kid.
out with pirates. Yeah.
Oh my god, this is
the best life ever for a kid. Is that what you were gonna say?
Well, I mean, like it just seems like this kid's just running around all carefree in this town. It's going to lead to disaster at some point, which it kind of does.
He's in a bar with pirates and bandits. He's drinking juice and he's eating devil fruit. Like, I don't know what kind of life you want for this kid, but it seems pretty good to me.
I'm just saying that this is not the upbringing that I had.
Unfortunately.
And yeah, given the opportunity, this seems a vast improvement to my like sitting in school all the time and having to figure out algebra.
Well, but then you'd be able to navigate the high seas if you had some math learnings.
Dave, you know as well as I do that I failed out of oceanography and that there is no possible way you give me a sextant and I'm still going to laugh at the fact that it has the word sex in it.
It's the word sex.
That's how juvenile I am.
Indeed. Now, what I love about this part, though, is that it actually goes, this informs like the character of Luffy because it shows you his earlier age, shows you his childhood. And it shows you that he's like this little kind of angry kid. He's like fiercely loyal and really puts honor above everything else. He super wants to be a pirate, no matter what that kind of means, even if everybody else in the bar is kind of laughing at him. And honestly, he's willing to pick a fight with the biggest, meanest guy in town if he thinks it's in his, not even his best interest, but just because it's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And I love that you see so much about what the character of Luffy will become from this little interaction here.
But like, is it the best thing to do?
No, definitely
the
not.
Best thing? I mean, because I'm saying like Shanks takes this stuff in strides, and it's water off of a duck's back at this point.
Yeah, or booze
and
off
I
a
loved
pirate's
seeing
shoulder.
that.
Whatever.
Yeah, booze off a pirate's shoulder. And so it's just I was gonna say it's liquor off of a seaman's shoulder, and that just was too many potential innuendos and double entendres that are just not good, guys.
Nope.
So liquor off a seaman's shoulder, and so it's one of those things where it's great to kind of see him have that ability to be able to laugh at something that's not life threatening, that's not something that's critical, because we have these mountain bandits that come in and they're looking for booze. And it turns out that Shanks offers them a bottle, and this main bandit leader just kind of breaks the bottle. Like he just kind of like, does he karate chop the bottle?
It's hard to tell. He
punches it, right?
Yeah.
Or
he just kind of he backhands it with his fist, and it breaks.
Because he's a real jerk.
And
so we have Shanks just like covered in booze at this point, and when they leave the bar, he's just totally cool with it. And Luffy, to his fault, we've talked about the impulsiveness and sort of the honor that he has, which is great to hear, Alex, that's a consistent trait that he has throughout the entire show. Like, he's just too young. He doesn't understand this. He doesn't understand what the problem is, which kind of brings the dilemma that we have for this whole episode.
I love the fact that, though, like Shanks kind of, his nonchalant attitude, I think, comes from confidence. Because honestly, like all the pirates in the bar, once he's like covered in booze and stuff, he just like shrugs it off, and then everybody starts laughing, and they kind of make fun of him a little bit. And I think it's just because like they all know that like they could take these guys at the drop of a hat. Like it's not a problem. There's no reason to start a fight or start any kind of trouble here, because these guys are like bugs. There's no reason they need to start a fight.
I love the fact that Shanks is backed up by his entire crew and everybody that's in the bar by kind of all simultaneously laughing. Like it was such a positive, like reinforced and like supportive nature of having them all just kind of like begin to crack up at the same time. Like it was great because it showed that this was a cohesive group, that like these guys were like really friends. Like they gave each other a little bit of shit afterwards about it for like 2 seconds, but then they were just like, not a big deal, moving on. And like it's weird to sort of see the juvenile nature of our hero and him not really kind of understanding
like,
what's
honestly,
at
for
stake.
me, quite literally, the only thing that didn't make sense in this entire episode, regardless of the fact that like eating these devil fruits give you special powers, and we should mention as a teaser that like this isn't the only one. Like Luffy's not the only one who gets these abilities. Not by a long shot. Yeah.
How many of these devil fruits are around? Like who's just getting these and eating these?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, the who, you'll find that out, but
Okay.
how many? That remains to
still
be
could be a
determined
bunch, yeah.
completely.
Wow. Okay.
But
Yeah, and I'll tease it a little bit. You'll see some pretty crazy shit like down the line, like
Really?
Stuff you've never even imagined, even as an improviser.
it's a good
Fuck.
tease.
Okay.
It's yeah.
But yeah,
It's
like the
pretty
one
nuts.
thing in this episode
Alright.
that didn't really make sense to me was like all that stuff happened, and then it cut to like Luffy just stuffing his face with his fruit in a box, and then like not knowing what's going on, you're just like, the fuck, like what's this kid eating? And then they say like don't eat out of frustration.
But yeah,
You're
like,
wait
as
a
a-
minute, you just ate, and I love the scene where Shank comes over and like tries to shake the fruit out of him by holding him upside down.
So good.
And there's like a pause, and then Luffy's entire body just goes flump and just smashes into the ground. Because I would imagine back in like 99 when this first started, like seeing that for the first time, you're probably just like, what the fuck happened to that kid? It's gotta be such like a fun, magical moment, and it's still hilarious. It's just the thing, like I still don't have a connection as to why he just went to town on that fruit.
Well, you know, it frightened me for 2 seconds because as a stress eater myself, I was like, oh
Okay,
no,
that
what's
makes
going to
sense.
happen to my body? And I'm just going to get fat. I'm just
I
going to
mean, you
get
still
fatter.
stretch, just not in the way that Luffy does.
Just, yeah, I wanted to stretch vertically. I'm just going to stretch continually
You don't,
horizontally.
like, snap back so much.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it's
Well, I mean, it is. It's just going to be like elastic
okay,
waistbands
so
on
like the
sweatpants.
exterior. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. What's funny though is that like if that were me, right? If I was a kid who wanted to be a pirate and just saw all these idiots come in and insult all my friends, heroes, and mentors, and then all of a sudden I have like superpowers, the first thing I would do is go pick a fight with them. And that's essentially what Luffy does. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
he
kinda like,
does.
okay, that's cool. I respect that. How's it go though, Alex?
It doesn't go well. It doesn't go well at all. The bandits corner him and beat the crap out of him. I think in the manga, I think he tries to throw a punch or whatever and completely fucks it up.
Like just because of the elasticity or
Just like he has no control
yeah.
over his powers. That's the thing.
Okay.
That's the thing about devil fruits is that once you have a power, like you need a little time to let it marinate and you have to learn how to control it. It's like anything. Practice makes perfect. Or I'm thinking of a different bit. Spoilers. Whoops. But either way, yeah, Luffy gets the tar knocked out of him by the bandits and the mayor of the town, whose name by the way, they don't mention it in the show. His name is Whoop Slap, which is
Stop it.
a wonderful name for any
Whoop
character.
Slap?
Whoop Slap. Mayor Whoop Slap of Fuchsia Village. That's right. And by the way, every single character in One Piece has a name, even the background characters. The manga is ridiculous. Oda has made data books that have the names of like all the background characters and stuff like that, and
Oh
they're
my
all
God.
like puns or little tiny dumb jokes for the sake of
Hilarious.
being
I love
dumb,
that, though.
and it's kind of amazing. Yeah, it's super good. Yeah, so Makino goes and gets the mayor and oh, don't hurt him. He's just a kid. I'll pay for any damage that he caused. And the bandit has his own resolve, saying, well, he made me mad, and even if he's a kid, I can't let this slide. What kind of a person would I be if I, went back on on my
I
belief.
love that he
Yeah.
he puts the fact that he has an 8 million berry bounty on his head, which you come to
Yeah.
find is like
berries.
nothing.
Yeah, berries. By
berries
the way,
are currency.
berries are the currency.
Got it.
Yeah, they're not actual berries. They're, it's coins and dollars.
It's like a
money.
double dollar and
They just call them berries.
Okay.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
double dollars exactly.
Like bottle
It's,
caps
it's,
in
it's
Fallout.
exactly like that.
yeah.
Got it.
It's just funny that like a lot of the crew that joins later has like 100+ million berry bounty or whatever. So like this guy's kind of like small fry. Like he's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But I love that he keeps saying this, and he like has this sort of vision of himself as like this big bad guy, and he's way outclassed. Especially when Shanks and the rest of the crew shows up.
He's tall. He's got crazy looking hair, and he's got a scar, like an X slash
so he's
scar,
a great anime
like up
character, but that's
above,
it.
like like he's got the scar like up above, like his like right temple, up above his eye. He looks
Look,
villainous.
I'm sure he's seen some
and he's
shit,
in
but in this anime, he's outclassed.
earth tone robes and a sword will make you a villain in almost any
If
anime.
you're gonna show up as a villain in
true.
like the first couple of episodes, though, it's gonna be a bad time. You're just gonna get your ass kicked. Like there's no chance for you. I'm sorry. You're not even gonna be around for like a multi-episode fight. You're just gonna be like a one and done. You're probably gonna get eaten by a giant sea monster, essentially. Yeah.
Exactly.
Speaking
of.
Let's get into that.
Yeah.
Because I did not see. So Bandit Guy smoke bombs.
Yeah.
Well, before that.
Okay.
this is actually like I think my
this is a cool
favorite part of the
sequence,
flashback.
Okay.
So Shanks shows up. Shanks and his crew show up right before Luffy's about to be executed by this bandit, and he just tells them, "Hey, come on, just let him go. You don't want this to
he's a kid.
escalate."
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the bandits points a gun to Shanks' head, and Shanks turns to him and says, "So you're putting your life on the line with that thing?" He's like, "What? Well, the guns aren't just for playing around, And as soon as he says that, one of Shanks' subordinates, big fat guy with the meat, his name is Lucky Roo.
Stop it. Are you serious?
I am not.
Love it.
I'm
the
I'm
guy
not
with the
Joshua.
Renaissance fair turkey leg.
Yeah.
Every step of the way.
Tweedledum,
Lucky
loved
Roo.
it.
Perfect. Lucky Roo.
He shoots the bandit in the head,
Yep.
felling him,
Yeah.
rendering him prone. And the bandits claim that Shanks' crew is fighting dirty, and then they have this really great speech about dirty. Come on, you're dealing with pirates. You're not dealing with with scrubs here. Like if you're gonna pick a fight, then let's go. Basically.
Yeah. I mean, because if you were, let me ask this question: if you took the ship and all of the nautical portion away from a pirate, what would they be called?
Well, probably bandits.
Yeah. I mean, so these are just like
Just land
these are
pirates.
just they're just land pirates that just haven't figured out again how to navigate the ocean,
Sure.
which seems to be a consistent theme in this show so far.
Well, the thing is though about the pirates in One Piece is that every pirate has conviction, and
Okay.
the bandits don't seem to have that.
Good point.
So Shanks has this really great speech about like, well, you can spit liquor on me and you can like push me down and make fun of me all you want, but when it comes to my friends, like if you hurt my friends, you're gonna have to answer to me. Shanks' first mate, Ben Beckman, doesn't get a name in this, but that's his name. I swear to God. He's like, I'll take care of this, and destroys all of the bandits using the butt of his rifle, just to show that we don't need to shoot any bullets at you to take care of you.
Man. Yeah, no, it was a really powerful scene. Like it escalated very quickly.
Yeah.
From like that, you're putting your life on the line with that. All of a sudden, you're just like, oh no, these people are all dead.
But that just goes
Yeah,
to show
cool.
that, like, since this is a flashback, since these are the people that were responsible for Luffy going on this quest, now you know that, like, there's a lot more to these guys than we're going to see for a long time, probably, or at least in this episode. Like, they're not just, like, run-of-the-mill pirates. There's something special to these guys. And I love when they show kind of, like, that hidden power kind of thing. Like, unless you have a power meter on your eye or whatever, you never know, like, what the level of the person is you're going to be fighting. So I love when they have these little tete-a-tetes like that. But the bandit leader, now that he's all by himself, like Sean mentioned earlier, he smoke bombs his way out of there and then suddenly just kind of like transports himself out onto the ocean, essentially. But he's still got young Luffy with him. And as we remember, Luffy can no longer swim. So that's a bad time. It's going to be a bad time.
Well, I mean, it's a really bad time because the first thing, now that this bandit's on the seas, which I don't know, you would think as a bandit, who, as we've mentioned, is a land pirate, but he goes into kind of full pirate mode out on a boat, not realizing, obviously, that like these pirates are going to want to catch up to him to save their friend. So let's say not the smartest decision that he could make.
I'd say his reasoning is sound, though. Like, why would they'd never expect a mountain bandit to take
fair.
to the sea?
That's a good point.
That's his reasoning.
Yeah, good way to get
chucks
rid of the
Luffy
kid
into the
'cause he can't
water.
swim.
Exactly. And there's this really cool shot when he throws him in the ocean. You get like a first-person POV from Luffy, which is this upside-down shot of like him just falling into the ocean and just thinking, crap, I'm dead. And as the bandit laughs, something cool as shit happens.
This is Sean's favorite moment, so it's all you, buddy.
We had this sea serpent that just kind of came out of nowhere, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, he's going to scare this guy.
Straight up
no,
eats him.
he eats him.
Yeah,
he just opens his maw and just clamps down, and this guy's gone, and you're just like,
Bandit
what
gone.
the fuck just happened to this? And because you immediately realize then all the peril that our hero is in, and you're just like, well, clearly, like the gumminess of his body, like he's gonna get stuck.
No, he's just
like
gonna,
that's
he's
a lot
just
of like sea monster dental work that needs to happen. Like that's a problem.
For 7 years, and then he's gonna get passed out.
Exactly, guys, don't swallow gum. Don't
doesn't matter,
swallow
you're
bubble
fine.
gum. Real bad idea.
Yeah, it's bad.
So in this moment, where Luffy is sort of at that point where he's accepting his fate, where he's like, "Oh shit, I'm screwed." All of a sudden, we have Shanks just out of nowhere, just saves him, and you're just
how
like,
did he
"What
save
a
him?
badass!" Like it seemed like he kind of darted, like through the water, grabbed Luffy, and then just kind of like sidestepped.
And then I love that he just kind of like gives the evil eye to the sea monster and literally scares the sea monster away, like just with a look. There's more to it than
I thought originally. I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, does he have some type of like crazy cool hypnotic powers that like he can like charm people? Is this like a Twilight thing where he's gonna like he's gonna sparkle?
He's not gonna sparkle
people. Okay, thank God.
Don't worry.
Whew. Real nervous about that
so
one.
that's great. So like bad guy's dead, sea monster's full, and he runs away, and Luffy was rescued by Shanks.
Right.
So like everybody's happy, right? Everybody's whole, hearty, hale, healthy, and happy. Well, not so whole.
Not so whole. Well, so Luffy's crying about it, and Shanks like, "Hey, don't cry. You're a man. It's fine." And Luffy says, "Shanks, what about your arm?" And then we pan out, and Shanks' arm is bloody and missing. Like it's just a stump.
Which I was like, is this the part where they're gonna be like, he's not in One Piece?
Terrible. Oh my God.
I'm not trying to pun it, but I'm just like, look, this is my first episode where I'm introduced to this. Yeah, I'm just trying to gauge what level of humor we have in the show right now.
But it goes to show you how much
Right.
Shanks cares for Luffy. You know,
it's
just an arm. He tells him, as long as you're okay. And then we flash forward to some time in the future.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that moment though. Right before we.
Well, that was
cut
that.
to
Well,
where
as
they were
as he
going,
was
they were,
a
like gearing up to head back out to sea. I love that Shanks basically said to him like, I came to your rescue because you stood up for us. Like you fought for us. You had no reason to. So for me, that's like you're like a loyal friend to the end. So here we are. I just love that moment. That was a really cool moment. But then flash forward.
Yep.
Well, I was gonna say before we flash forward, did anybody else want to take off the straw hat and then John Hammond him and just be like, "Welcome to Jurassic Park"? I've been like, "You son of a bitch." No? Okay.
We have a T-Rex.
Just me?
Butterfingers?
I mean, we just had a huge sea dinosaur
That was Jurassic
bit off
World.
a
That
man's
wasn't
arm.
Jurassic.
Yeah.
And a much worse movie.
Okay, fair enough.
Right. Oh God, I could
Next week
talk
on Saturday
an
Morning
entire podcast about
Cartoons,
how bad that movie is.
Jurassic World, the animated series.
Alex will be joining us for that, and we also have one of the stars of the movie as well. So, who will that be?
I was like, who could that be?
Who could that be? It certainly wouldn't be somebody whose name rhymed with piss brat.
All right, let's get back to
No?
Luffy here.
Alright.
So what's the deal? So the pirates are headed out, but is this the last we see of Shanks? Is it the last Luffy sees of him? What's going on?
Not really, no. Well, I mean, for the time being, it is. Luffy tells Shanks, I'm not gonna. So you guys are leaving, and it's fine. I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna follow you guys anymore. I've decided that I'm gonna be a pirate myself. I'm not gonna join you guys. I'm gonna be my own pirate. And Shanks, as he is, just like, blah. Of course you are, idiot. You're not gonna be a pirate. You'll never be as good as us. And then that really makes Luffy mad, and he proclaims for the very first time that I'll be better than you. I'll become king of the pirates.
Nice.
And Shanks is impressed by this, and he says, "Oh, you're going to become better than us." And before Luffy can say anything else, he takes his most most precious treasure, the straw hat that Shanks has, and he puts it on Luffy's head and says, "Well, if you're going to be a great pirate, then bring this back to me one day." And it's a really, like, every time I see that moment where, like, he just puts the hat on his head, I get like a chill. Like, it's such a nice little moment. Just a really heartwarming.
It is, especially
moment,
when you kind of like go back and know what the history of the hat is and where that's kind of been handed down from. And also, if you remember, just back to the beginning of this episode where the hat was kind of blowing off Luffy's head, and they have like this slow motion sequence where they go and try to like claim it. That's what set this whole thing into motion. It's only a couple of seconds in real time, but it's this whole flashback.
But like, when the hat flew off of his head, why didn't he use his like
gum arms?
Richard Reed's, is that what they're called? They're not gum
gum
arms,
arms,
are they? Please don't let them be called gum arms.
No.
Like, why didn't he use his special ability to just kind of like reach out and grab it?
Because there's drama. You need a little bit of drama for that transition.
I'm cool.
Yeah.
I'm cool if we add that tension in to serve the story. So that's fun. I like that.
Yeah. I think that's a
and
cool
to build some of that
stylistic choice,
camaraderie
honestly.
too, because wasn't it Zoro that actually reached out and got it for him? So I was kind
Yeah,
of
it was
for those two.
Yeah. I guess one thing we didn't touch on was during that moment, there's intermittent flashbacks of Shanks saying, "I could never give this hat to you, Luffy. It's too precious to me."
Yeah.
Which is kind of important to.
Which now I want to know where
question.
Shanks got it from.
Well, you just have to watch it to find out.
The funny thing is, like, that would seem like a cool place to end this episode with like Zoro and Luffy back on the boat, but there's a little bit more to the story. We can kind of wrap it up fairly quickly, but this is where everything kind of ties together here, right? So Luffy's got his hat back, and because he's kind of like spontaneous, impetuous, and a little crazy, he sees a bird flying overhead. And he's like, "I'm gonna eat that bird." And he literally just like slingshots himself off the mast of the boat to go fly after this bird. But because of the way that perception works, it's a lot farther away than he thinks. It's also a lot bigger than he thinks, to the point that it can like almost swallow him like with its beak. Like it's.
Well, it looks like he slingshots into its mouth.
He slingshotted, and then the bird is just like carrying him in its mouth to who knows where. So of course now Zoro is like, "Well, thanks, asshole. So now I have to like row after you." Which, if you guys remember from the opening of this show, there are currently 3 random pirates that are kind of shipwrecked out in the middle of the ocean somewhere. I wonder who's going to come across their path.
Could it be Zoro?
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
What's funny here, though, is that like you'd think with 3 of these guys who are pissed off and are experienced pirates that like they would climb aboard Zoro's ship and then take over. What they do in a really quick kind of off-scene battle is show how capable Zoro is, and the fact that like his renown as a pirate hunter and his like specific name is really well known on the high seas, and they're just like, after they get the ship beat out of them, they're just like, "We're sorry, dude, we didn't know that that's who you were." So now they are rowing the boat for him. But like this is where the heroes are kind of split apart for a little while. So Luffy is split away from Zoro. Zoro's trying to find him, but he kind of loses track of him. Meanwhile, we've got Nami, who we haven't really even been introduced to yet by name. She's currently running from another group of pirates somewhere else and carrying a map that they are pretty pissed off that she has in her possession. And so how does it come about that Nami and Luffy end up making a sort of weird first introduction?
Well, he falls from the sky because that's what happens.
Because the clown from It
because Pennywise
shoots a cannonball at the bird. Yeah, Pennywise shoots a cannonball.
That's right. Yeah, the pirate clown Buggy the clown, who is the chief pirate of those 3 pirates that Nami had swindled earlier.
He's eaten a devil fruit as well, right? That's what I've come to learn, is that like all the villains, or like a lot of the key people in this, have eaten devil fruit, right?
A good chunk, not all of them though.
Okay.
Which makes for very interesting.
Yeah, because basically like these
Okay.
things give you enough powers that you could sort of separate yourself from the pack, and if you chose to, you could be kind of like a leader among men or a captain among pirates or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Yeah. So Buggy's crew shoots down the bird. Luffy lands right in front of Nami, thereby sort of, interrupting that chase sequence, and proclaims this as an interesting experience.
I love that though. I mean, what a crazy way to end this, but also to tie in. It's sort of like you started with 2 separate entities, you split them all up, so now you have 3 separate entities, and then you kind of bring the other 2 that weren't previously together back together. I just love the way that they kind of like connect all these threads in the space of like 20 minutes. It's really well done. So this is a great episode, I think, to as an introduction here, and a great sort of launching off point without getting in crazily into the mythology of One Piece that builds as you watch more and more episodes. So yeah, nicely done. Any final thoughts on this episode from either of you guys? Alex first, as our guest.
Yeah, one thing I actually want to mention is there is a bit from the manga that they cut out for Japanese censors. At the very beginning of this flashback, what's supposed to happen is Luffy is supposed to cut himself underneath the eye to prove how manly he is to the pirates, which is where he gets that scar from.
Oh.
Yeah. And they just decided to cut it out of the show at the time because it was, they didn't want kids to...
Cutting?
Yeah.
They didn't want kids disfiguring themselves to be like...
That's right, yeah. But that's like the first thing that happens is that, like, Luffy tries to prove himself to Shanks and all them. Like, oh, come on, kid, get down from there. And then he cuts his eye and starts screaming. And
holy fucking shit!
And then they go to the bar scene where Shanks gets him the juice.
Well, usually after you disfigure yourself, a bar is probably juice. The next logical choice.
Yeah.
For children.
Go juice.
Yeah. Go juice.
Sean, what about you, buddy? Did you what are your final thoughts from watching this first episode here?
I mean, I'm actually really looking forward to getting more into this. And this was a great primer for everything. So thank you, Alex.
Yeah, I aim to please. That's the entire reason I chose this episode, because I'm like, well, what's the episode that's gonna make you really want to watch it? Because the episode that had won the poll is a very action heavy episode.
Okay. And
somebody, I think, tweeted like, don't show them that episode. That's like for the DBZ, crowd. Like, if you love DBZ, then you'll love this. But at the heart of it, One Piece isn't about the fights really. Right. It's about the characters and what they go through and the adventure of it all.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, I mean, this is like a nice reintroduction. I've watched, Alex and I were talking offline, I've watched a fair number of episodes, but I got to a point where I was just kind of like, I don't know if it was saturated or it wasn't holding my attention, but it makes me kind of want to go back to it and see where the story goes from now, especially because I've got, 700 more episodes to watch. So it'll keep me busy for a while. But yeah, fantastic suggestion, fantastic series, and still going, which is crazy and pretty rare. So that's just our opinion. I think we're going to dive into a couple other opinions out here if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, let's get into
them. So these, like we like to do, we call these from IMDb. We've got a love it and a hate it. They're usually really bad, so we're going to start with a love it here tonight. This one is from Angelus2411 from the United Kingdom. This is from back in 2006 when the show was probably only like 25% complete, maybe not even. It's titled We Are on the Cruise. We Are. That should be pretty familiar for fans of the series out there. Angelus says, I watch a lot of fan-subbed anime and occasionally watch some dubbed anime if there is nothing else good on TV. Well, one day while watching Toonami in the UK, I stumbled across a show called One Piece. It wasn't amazingly good. There were obvious problems with the dub, but it was enjoyable nonetheless. After I'd watched a few episodes, I started to become curious about the characters and the origins of the story. I did a little bit of research on the web and found out that the version of One Piece I was watching had been butchered from its original format. There were a lot of sources that all said the same thing, that the original One Piece was brilliant and that the dub was nothing in comparison. I liked the show and wanted to see what uncut One Piece was like. After a little more searching, I found some fantastic fan subs and my real One Piece experience started. What can I say? Japanese One Piece is one of the best stories ever told and is by far my favorite show to watch. I look forward every week to watching the next episode when the fan sub is released. 280 episodes into the series, and it's still as great as it was when it first started. A poor dub led me to discover my favorite show, and so if nothing else, the dub will let new fans like me discover One Piece. Let's all hope this adventure continues for a long time. Well, Angelus, I'm from the future, and I'm here to tell you it's still going. But I think, Alex, that's interesting because it's like you had an experience with that as well, right? So you watched like a bad dub, and it kind of ruined, it at least tainted your experience, right?
A little bit. Well, so my first experience watching One Piece was in Greece, actually. And that was 2002. I'd watched a little bit of it. It's actually pretty bad. Over there, they call it Drake and the Search for the Treasure. They change all the names.
And it's starring Canadian rapper Drake.
Part. Yeah. Wheelchair Jimmy from Degrassi.
Degrassi.
That's how I know Drake. So then I found One Piece from there. I did some digging, and then I got like really bad Hong Kong bootlegs, and then the 4Kids dub I think came out a couple years afterward. I kind of want to touch on the dub that he mentions, the 4Kids dub. In addition to the amazingly awful rap song, they censor the crap out of the show. One of the main characters, Sanji, has a cigarette in his mouth all the time. So they painted it like they made it a lollipop. Like they painted every frame, and
I remember that actually.
The cigarette into a lollipop.
That, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So there's like, and God, the voice they give him is just amazingly bad. He kind of sounds like Dr. Girlfriend from Venture Brothers. He's got this kind of, hey, how's it going? Yeah, it's ridiculous.
That's from eating too many lollipops. That's what happens is you get throat cancer. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. They one of the most egregious things I remember was there's a bit in the second or third episode where a character has a gun pointed to their head, not the one in question that we had just watched, but a different one, and they change the gun into some sort of weird vice thing that goes around their head in one frame, and in the other frame it's a boxing glove like gun. Like it would behoove you to look up the 4Kids like edits because they're absolutely atrocious. I would wait until you're a little bit into the series first because you could enter into spoiler territory.
Gotcha.
But it's
I love those. Egregious. I love those little like Easter eggs. Not even Easter eggs, but just like trivia bits for the fans. Where it's just like, how bad can this possibly get?
The worst is how bad.
Speaking of how bad, I think Sean has our hate it review from IMDb.
Guys, I have Dwarves 36,003 from Illinois, and this is a relatively recent review. It's from last year, and the title just really sums it up with, "This is a stupid show." Oh man, let's get into this. I hate the names of the characters and what they look like. The plot is dumb, and now the creators have turned Luffy into Goku for some reason. A toddler with an IQ above room temperature could have created a better show than this. Besides, pirate-themed movies and television shows are always boring to watch. Hell, even Naruto is better. And this story is so slow, Internet Explorer was able to look up the show's premise faster than it took for one episode to end. That is a good IE dig there. Nice reach.
36,003.
Dwarves isn't done, it says, and yet everyone seems to think that One Piece is infinitely better than Bleach. Please give me one good reason why that is, and I will remove this review. After all, I also thought that the new Star Wars movie was stupid, and a lot of people agree with me. Well, Dwarves, I fucking hate you.
This is every day for me. So Dwarves, bro, if you're out there, Alex is going to give you one good reason to remove this terrible review from IMDb.
Wow, Jesus.
Oh, no pressure.
One good reason.
Like the best reason that I can think of off the top of my head is that Bleach is god awful. I used to follow Bleach, and it got to the point where every single arc was basically just the same. It's the same shonen formula. Big bad, train, fight the big bad. Oh, it turns out there's an even bigger bad behind this big bad, and it just keeps going and going and going. And nothing happens in each chapter. That's another good reason. I could just give reasons why Bleach is terrible versus why One Piece is great, because honestly, like, One Piece speaks for itself if you read it. or watch it, I think.
Maybe this was something where dwarves watched the 4Kids dub.
Hey, maybe.
And my suggestion would be for dwarves, maybe check out on Hulu, which is where 700 and something episodes are available that are subbed. Check it out and watch episode 1 or season 1, episode 4, like we did, and then come up with see if your opinion still holds true after that.
I'm just gonna suggest like not watching One Piece while you're also watching Rogue One, a Star Wars story, because maybe like that's too much going on for you. So like,
well, if you sync them up with Dark Side of the Moon,
yeah, that's too much, bro. Just like focus,
backwards.
pick one thing and just like stick with it.
Satan appears, and it's just like, the fuck are you doing? Knock it off, ass.
All right. Anything else for this episode tonight, guys? Before we get to the recommendations, I think we're gonna be pretty good across the board with recommendations.
Great, yeah. I think we're...
So,
yeah.
Alex, just so you know, just in case, for whatever reason, you decide that you want to do this, we have an option here where we call giving a show the dip. And the dip hails from Roger Rabbit, where if you decide to give a show the dip, it is erased from all existence for all time. So you can recommend a show, you can recommend against it, or you can recommend against it and give it the dip, erasing it from existence. So what say you for One Piece?
Oh,
Stupid question.
Well,
I don't know if dwarves
God,
argument
this is a
swayed
tough
you or
one.
not. So,
man,
Yeah.
that's tough. I'm gonna have to not give it the dip. I'm gonna have to recommend it. I recommend that you watch it. I recommend that you read the manga. I think the manga is very robust. There's a lot to drink in, especially if you love comics. I would call it like it's my favorite story that I've ever read, and that's saying a lot. It goes to show you that like this is the one show that I've consistently followed since like I got into it in 2002, and I'm still really into it, and that's like bonkers good.
yeah, that's great. That's gonna be our our pull quote. One Piece, bonkers good.
Yeah. Not like good like bonkers for the Bobcat, which I'm sure you've covered at some point.
I think we still
on the
have
show.
to.
We haven't actually done bonkers yet. No.
Oh wow, well then. As far as recommending like and if you want to get into it, I would start with the first episode or the episode that we covered, I think. If you're still not swayed, there are 13 movies that that are available. One of which got my friend into the series. It's called Strong World. FUNimation has it out on Blu-ray. It's a great movie if you're like looking to dip your toes into One Piece just to get like a good 2-hour action / heartstringy movie.
How was Gold? Because I know that just came out, but I haven't seen it.
Oh man, I ended up seeing Gold at E Street Cinema.
Oh no way!
Yeah, they did a small theatrical run of it, and it was super fun. It looks great. The villain is wonderful. The villain's henchmen, I think, are the best villain henchmen that we've had in the movies so far. They're all amazing. The action sequences are great. And there's a bunch of crazy fan service that is a little spoilery. But yeah, Gold was superb. It has the best soundtrack, I think, too. It's all big band stuff.
Nice. Yeah, definitely worth checking out.
Takes place on a casino boat.
Casino boat.
On a casino? Oh, cool.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of like promos and stuff for it, but hadn't seen it, so definitely looking forward to that. Cool.
Yeah.
Sean, buddy, since you're a newcomer to this, what say you? Recommend it?
I've watched one episode and I recommend it.
Yeah, and for me, like this is kind of coming back to the series, and like just seeing like Alex's passion for this makes me want to go back and pick up where I left off. I think I left off somewhere in Alabaster, if that makes sense to anybody else out there. So yeah, I think I got to go back and pick it up. That's where we're going to leave it for tonight, though. So we want to thank Alex again for coming and sharing his wisdom, his expertise, his passion for this.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you so much.
Well, you're very welcome. It was a pleasure.
And Alex is going to tell you where you can listen to him and his crew for the One Piece podcast. So where can folks find you on social media? Where can they find the podcast? And what else do you have going on maybe in the next couple of weeks that you want to let our listeners know about?
Okay, so you can find the One Piece podcast at onepiecepodcast.com. Lately, I've been busy with some life stuff, so I haven't been able to be on the podcast as much as I would like to. But we go through the manga every single week. Viz.com has it simulcasted, if I guess that's the right term for it. And we do an anime recap as well as answering questions that listeners might have. And we make a lot of Simpsons references on it, so if you love The Simpsons, then I think you're going to like it. You can find me on various forms of social media: Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram at Dude exclamation. That's all one word. I also do another podcast with some folks that have guested on the One Piece podcast. Joey Weiser, author of children's comic Merman, and a fellow named Scott Dryman. It's called Toho Yaro. It's a Japanese film club podcast where we watch a Japanese movie and then we talk about it. This last month's movie was Fish Story, and let's see, the April episode is Truck Yaro, which is where we get our name from. Look it up. It's crazy. It's like Japanese truckers racing each other. It's
oh god,
it's completely batshit.
And we are of course going to consolidate all this information and put it on our website for anybody who's looking for any of these podcasts, that they can quickly access them. So that's awesome. Anything else, Alex?
Off the top of my head,
you're performing with Richie.
I'm performing with Richie. It's an improv Herald team. Every Tuesday at the Source in Washington D.C. Catch it.
And it's free.
Super free. Yeah. So you can see me there. I also perform with another independent improv troupe around D.C. called The Female Accent. We have shows here and there, everywhere. It's a lot of fun. So check us out when you can.
Cool. Of course, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Sean Paul Ellis. And I'm performing live improv comedy, as well as also, I know Alex is too, with a group called Knox for Washington Improv Theater. We've just wrapped up our month and a half long run for something called Fist. And so we are going to be, I think we have a hiatus, but we will be picking back up with shows, and you can find out information and tickets at witdc.org. Dave, what are you up to?
Was there a question, or are you just going to shout my name?
Dave.
I think I'm going to leave it all behind and go out on the high seas in search of a grand treasure. Is that still a thing you can do?
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to do that. Well, if I have internet access out there, you guys can find me on Twitter at DrClawMD. You can also find me on Collider.com, Nerdist.com, and DaveTrumbore.com. If you're interested in finding out more about the show or to check out Alex's contact information and Sean's as well, head on over to our webpage, SaturdayMorningCartoons.com. Remember, it's morning with a U. You can also find us on Twitter at MorningTunes. Check out Sean's handiwork on our Instagram page, keep the conversation going on Facebook, and listen to our free audio podcast each and every week through YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. If you have a suggestion for a future episode or just want to talk about devil fruit with us, send us an email, SaturdayMorningCartoons@gmail.com. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of Anime April, but more is going to continue next week and throughout the rest of this month. I want to say thank you again so much to Alex for coming and joining us tonight.
Thank you, Alex.
Hey, anytime.
We're going to have you
awesome.
back for Bonkers, a number of other things. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, Bonkers, the Mr. T
cartoon. When they animate the Jurassic World movie. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So,
oh, God.
Hey, for all our SMC fans out there, thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you next week.
Hey, everybody. Thanks a lot for listening to Saturday Morning Cartoons. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to transform and roll out.